morning, everyone. So, we're doing another entrepreneurial profile. Today, we have Constantino Quinton. He's a CEO of Securieon Group, and he'll be sharing how this no nonsense kid from Oakland climbed to the heights to be responsible for leading companies through challenging pivots and realigning them towards scalable growth. Um, I'm excited. So, enough of me. Let's get into it. Good morning, everyone. Paula Madison Sierra of Power Marketing SF and the host of the show. This morning, we have with us Constantino Quinton. I'm excited for the share. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show. Looking forward to chatting
Well,
with you
thanks for
today.
sharing your time. There's so many people out there right now in this crazy world that we're in who are jumping into starting businesses and making big changes, whether it's in corporate or outside of it. And so I just love the fact that folks like you are willing to give me your time to just share your experiences. So I want to dive into just a little bit about the man first before we even go anywhere. So, I did my intro. You're from Oakland. For a while, I thought you were from New York because you just have that New York savvy about you.
You
I,
did.
I did. I thought you were.
I love New York. And I love a lot of the comments from New York. Like I can handle that in a
And so you
minute.
spent your whole,
If you can make it here, you
but
can make
I
it
think
anywhere.
I grew up in New York. I think if you can make it in the Bay Area, you can make it anywhere. I feel that New York is a lot easier because of the quantity of things that you have access to. If you can't do it when things are like right there in front of you, I think that's kind of crazy. But Bay Area, it's a different beast. So I really love that. Have you grown up all your life here?
I actually did. But touching on the New York for a moment, then transferring back to the Bay Area, I think a lot of it has to do with attitude. I think that folks in New York can be a little bit more assertive, and that may be the communication piece. But I think in the Bay Area, you can be both assertive and you can also be welcoming in how you approach. So I think it depends on the audience that you're working with. I grew up in the Bay Area, always loved the Bay Area, but I'll tell you something that's interesting. I used to say to my mother, because I grew up with a single mother, as I've heard that story before, but I can tell you, I used to say, Mom, why is it always cloudy outside? Why is it always raining here? And I can honestly tell you, over the last 20 years, I have not seen much of that. So not only has the culture and the economics and the whole world around the Bay Area has changed, so has
No,
the
no,
weather. It
it's
really is a real thing. So I can
Listen,
attest
I'm
to
in the
that for having
Sunset
grown up.
District in San Francisco, and when I first got here, you'd wake up in the mornings and you couldn't see the neighbor across the street. It was that much fog. I haven't seen that in a very, very, very long
Wow.
time. It's
Well,
now I look at fog with fondness. Yeah. What's
nature's
that?
air conditioning.
Oh,
Fog is nature's air conditioning in the Bay Area. It was a welcome sight. Now it's where is it?
it's not there
You
anymore.
know, and I'm on the East
Oh,
Bay
so you're
of the Bay Area. That's not there
It's
anymore.
well,
There's a lot of
the
heat.
beautiful part about the pandemic, I
You
think
have to
it,
adjust.
because you got to look at these bad things that happen and pull the learning from them, right? For me, it was that the world has become one, how important learning is, how important taking care of your head is. Doesn't matter if you take care of your body, your mind, push hard at work if you're not taking care of your headspace. But what did you learn from the pandemic?
Well, I'll tell you what I learned. I think I know for a fact what I've learned from the pandemic. I learned how vulnerable we are as human beings to these things that are caused by a pandemic. I think also it allowed us time to reflect, and a lot of folks may have looked at it as a tragic time, loss of life. kind of reflect on what does this mean to me. And I'll tell you what, we're seeing the aftermath of that. People are beginning to wonder, what is the quality of life? How do I have a work-life balance? Second of all, they begin to realize they're only around for a certain period of time, so they better maximize the time they have. And that's a lesson learned. And I think that, as part of the theme of being an advisor, you have failed a number of times or reflected on the situation that you've faced. I'm not sure you could be a good advisor, because you have to really internalize, well, what did we just learn from this? So the pandemic caused me to reflect on quality of life, and certainly with the clients we work with, they're concerned about quality of life as well. So that's the good thing. What did Winston Churchill once say? Never let a good crisis go to waste. We were in a crisis situation. In fact, we're in a crisis situation every day. It's just our attitude. It's our attitude, how we address it. And I know that's over.
Yeah, but it's speed up, right? I mean, it's sped up because I think, like you said, we were always in crisis because it's called life. But it's now amplified because we sat still and now we're looking at it in different ways. Do you think businesses are still run in
Yes.
the same way since the pandemic? Is it the same culture, thought line, processes, financial, what's your opinion on that?
I think, well, I can tell you that the clients that we've worked with and the clients that we're advising on as potential clients, I mean, they're all experiencing something different, but the one common thing amongst all of them is they're reflecting on what's next in my personal life and then what's next in my business life. So I believe everyone is pivoting. I believe that people are not, some are thinking about pivoting, which means, what do I do next? How do I continue to run my company? Should I wind down my own personal life? And others are embracing the fact that this might be a new opportunity. Now, there is a small faction of folks, and you hear it all the time in the press, they're leaving California. I don't think they're leaving California. I think what we have to be able to look at is there's a lot of sensationalization based on social media and the news and instantaneous information that we oftentimes get swayed by what we're seeing and hearing. So I think the good news is I believe people are still trying to find ways to get around the challenges of post-COVID. I think from a business standpoint, the folks that will make the best out of the hardest times will survive and sustain and scale. But you've got to be careful to monitor and manage the noise. A lot of noise going on right now. So, and another reason to reflect.
Go ahead and if you could share with the viewers, what is it that your company do exactly, and a little bit about how you do it? Because I think that financial.
Well, I can share with you. I can share with you this. Everybody, whether it's in business or life, goes through a pivot. Oftentimes it's promoted or started by a quandary that they've gone through, some kind of serious impact, both emotionally and financially. So what my firm does is we cover several areas that entrepreneurs need, business people, early stage, mid stage to late stage need. Number one, we look at the financials as an operation. We equate that to looking at from a medical standpoint. That's the blood work. That tells you what's going on in the company, what's going on the body. It's the same analogy. The second component of that is that if there's areas within the body that need to be addressed, that's where you look at operations, you look at marketing, you look at sales. But let me share with you how the whole thing comes together is what I call organizational behavior. And that's, again, going back to what we talked about earlier about the pandemic and pivoting and quandaries. We have to look at the behavior that we demonstrate to our employees, demonstrate to our spouse, significant others, to our children. It's that attitude, that behavioral component that may have been ingrained when we were a child. The old saying about what we learn today is as a result of what we learned in kindergarten. I believe we've been impacted by our lives, how we grew up, and it's what we take from that allows us to look at these changes in the world, and that behavioral component changes as well. Here's the beautiful thing about getting older, I believe. As you get older, you ain't say the saying, I wish I knew then what I know now, but you do know it now, and you can reflect on it now. I gave a speech to my daughter. She had a birthday a couple months ago, and her husband asked me to speak. And the night before, I was very concerned. Are you ready for this speech to 40 people? And I said, you know what? I've got it covered. And that's where the maturity and the experience and the getting older comes in. But here's what I said at the last minute. And you've heard it. We've all heard it. Where did the time go? And from this moment forward, we can honestly say, where did the time go? I remember the time from my child's first breath to where we are today, through the trials, tribulations, opportunities, challenges, the heartbreak, the crying. I knew intimately where
Yeah.
the time went. So from this point forward, when I meet with folks, I say, when someone says, do you know where the time went? Yes, because I'm in control of that. I know where to allocate my time. Ask me that 30 years ago? Probably not. It was a different world then, and our bodies were different then, and social media was different then. So you have to be able to, hey, where did the time go? I know where it went. I'm in
Let me
control of
ask
my
you,
time.
let
And
me
that's
ask you
what
a
we have to do.
question. When, just in general, as you interact with business owners, because you do that networking with your clients, is this one of those components that people actually even think about? You know, because they're coming in thinking, have the great service, offer it to the clients, move, push, move, push, move, right? The behavioral component,
Yeah.
that sounds like it's very holistic, right? Because we're looking at a couple of different pieces. Is this something that people take into consideration when they decide to start a business?
Yes, and I'll answer it. The biggest concern is what is driving them to start a business. Something compelling is causing them. You know, the old saying, people don't quit their job, they quit their boss. But something inside of them is causing them to want to start a business. And some may say it's entrepreneurialism. Some may say it was what my family's always been an entrepreneur, but something is driving them. And the cool thing about different levels of entrepreneurialism is what's the worst case scenario if you fail at running the business, which is also the
Yeah,
fear factor that cause people not to do business. The worst thing is you go back
yeah,
to what you were doing. But if you take a look at entrepreneurs, they have great vision. And at times their execution may match the vision, but oftentimes it also gets to the point where they get a middle to late stage that they need a little bit of outside looking in to guide them through some of those entrepreneurial excitement and
yeah.
vision. But we really need to run this as a real company. I have a question for most of them, and I'll say, what is the business you're really in?
Oh,
And what is the job to be done? Because oftentimes we come up with this beautiful vision of where they want to be, but what is it that you do? What is the job to be done? What are you in the business of doing? You know, there's an article, I've said it many, many times, a Harvard Business Review case study. It's on milkshakes and what are the most milkshakes sold. And the premise there is we don't really know when the most milkshakes sold. Not only that, we don't know why they sell a lot. It happens to be in the morning. But if you really understand the job to be done, the milkshakes are sold in the morning the most because the job is to get the viscosity thickness of getting from point A to point B, getting the consumer through traffic. Number two, they think it's healthy. Number three, well, it does taste good. I do like a good chocolate milkshake every once in a while, but it's that feeling. Again, we go back to that behavior, that attitude, that's the experience we're trying to create. So as an entrepreneur, they're creating what is the job you're trying to do, and what's the experience you're trying to create for your
Let me ask
customers.
you a question though. You know, with because I'm
Hmm.
hearing entrepreneurs needing to be okay with going through that ride, right? Because that's just the way it is. What strategies do you employ to stay motivated and focused during challenging times as an entrepreneur? And maybe also what you advise your clients as well.
Well, the one thing that drives whether you're an entrepreneur, a manager, an executive, is there is something inside of you that's driving you. If you're not driven, you're most likely, number one, not going to be an entrepreneur. Uh, you may just be perfectly happy with
Mm,
good is good enough. But what I found in both entrepreneurs and leadership is there's a compelling drive inside of them that says, I need to accomplish this for the following reasons. Some are just motivated by self interest, others are motivated by looking at their children or their significant other. Others, again, are motivated by the whole concept of money. And, you know,
yeah.
money becomes at some point in your life a
Mm,
metric. It doesn't define you, it does not. But for some entrepreneurs and some business leaders that I work with, it does define them. I look at it differently. Let me share with you the number one thing I think that most folks need. They need to be able to vent, share, collaborate, or just someone to listen to them And that requires you first to build trust. And the second thing is you need to be able to listen, because the credibility will come with not only listening, but the types of questions you
How
ask. I think the hardest thing for advisors is it's all about them, and it's really about their client. They need to listen really
can you
well.
define for me what you think active listening sounds like? What is that? Because I feel like whether you're an entrepreneur or you're an intrapreneur in the corporate structure, listening is something that I think is not well practiced. What's your definition of active listening?
Mm. Active listening is to be quiet, give great eye contact, and to take notes. But followed by the notes is number one, does that particular client or person you're speaking with, do they want the feedback or they just want you to listen? And you have to set that expectation up front. Oftentimes they just want you to listen. They don't want it fixed. They just want you to listen. Other times they'll say, listen, I'd like you to hear what I'm going to share with you, and then maybe share with me some ideas on how you would handle this. So you've been given permission to not only listen, but you've also been given permission to give some constructive feedback. Here's the other part about active listening. You have to be able to repeat what you heard
Mm,
them say and confirm that that in fact is some of the challenges, issues, or ideas they wanted to
mm,
share. It goes back to oftentimes active listening also has to do with what is the end goal here? What is today's objective? And because what happens is you can go into these various topics and then you have to bring it right back to, well, why? What is the objective? What is it we're trying to do today? And you have to set that. Sometimes there is no agenda that's stated, but you do have to listen. So active listening is I hear what you're saying, giving the eye contact, and if they give you permission, give them some feedback on what you
yeah,
think you
yeah.
heard.
I also like to look at the body movements as well. The eyebrows, the crinkle brows that says, "Yes, sure, we could do that." It's like it's not a yes.
Yeah, yeah. But here's what's interesting about the body language and about the facial expressions. Depending on what the topic is, will define how you present yourself, and you have to be, as a listener, conscious of that. We can tie a lot of that to emotional intelligence. But for example, if someone's telling you something from their heart and you're laughing and making a joke of it, or you're constantly looking around and not paying attention, that's a body
Yeah, I
language. That's
know,
not
right?
active
It's
listening.
or I personally like the what you really meant to say. It's not what I meant to say.
Oh yeah, yeah, what you meant to say.
That
Or I've heard another term that's it's a lot of business terms where someone will cut in and say, "Hold on, let me land this plane," and you laugh about it. So, you want to
oh,
land this plane? Yeah, it's but here, going back to your question,
yeah,
active listening
yeah,
is just
yeah,
to
yeah.
listen and
And
reconfirm what you
I
think.
don't think business owners realize how important it is. Well, great business owners who are succeeding realize how important it is. But I feel like even though it's just listening, it can change your financial life, your sales process, your marketing, your employees, relationship, that culture. So I think listening is really a lot bigger than people realize, and really just kind of sitting still, breathing, and making eye contact, like being present, right? And there with someone.
Yes,
Tony, what's your
yes.
your view of failures and setbacks? How do you view that?
Well, first of all, failure occurs as sort of a natural progression in life. Things you're just going to fail at. Something's going to happen. I think failure also is important if you understand that
Mm,
you have to learn from failure. I grew up in an era where the question is, well, who spilled the milk? Who broke the dish? It's always a constant. Who did this? And I really had to change my attitude as I grew up to say, you know what, I'm not so concerned about who did this, but I would
mhm,
like to know, what did we learn from this? That's number one. So failure is a good word, and a lot of people avoid it. They don't even want to admit their failure. A failed situation does not define you. A failed situation is a learning opportunity. And I know people play that over and over again, but it's true. And by the way, just from a standpoint of failure, when we go back to listening skills and someone's sharing with you all the things that are going wrong and they're venting, depending on their body language, will determine if you were to share with them, can I share with you my insights on what you just said? And that's asking for permission. You know, what did we learn from this? Is the cup half empty or is it half full? And a lot of people want to be half full attitudes, but they get so caught up in the emotion of failure or their ego's been bruised that they don't get to that. They don't cross that bridge for a while. And it takes time for them to admit that failure is a good thing. It's okay. What did we learn from it?
Yeah. Isn't that part of
So it's all on how you look at life.
Isn't it part of taking ownership and responsibility too, isn't it? Which is hard. Because, I mean, as a business owner, you also have to take responsibility for your employees' action as well. If things fall apart, it's yours. It's on you, right? It's completely you. So, what's your thoughts on responsibility? You know?
Well, I think responsibility and role oftentimes has to be defined to the situation. If you're a manager, your role is to what? Here are the responsibilities, but you have a job to manage some of the objectives that have to be accomplished. If you're the CEO or leader, executive suite, your role is to inspire and teach and give a vision and guide your team to an end goal. At the same time, if you could be sensitive, have enough emotional intelligence to understand that this journey that you're going to take your team through will have some ups and downs. And it's courage under fire that really defines the leadership. You know, there are folks who've been lucky and they come into a role and they become the CEO and the stock market takes off if they're going to do an IPO and they get the real rewards of the financial success, but they don't have an employee base that would refer them. We don't have an employee base that would say, I trust this person. So having said that, you really have to define the role, whether you're a manager, employee, or leader. The leaders that I've run into that are successful have a little bit of the ego, which drives them, have the maturity that they've experienced a lot of things, but also have the maturity to say, I don't understand this. I need to look at it. Can I get back to you? Because they want to be able to learn. No leader out there can be successful without a team, and they certainly can't be successful saying they know everything. Everybody needs somebody to kind of run ideas by. By the way, one thing about what I call thought leadership, if you're not constantly reading with all the access available to you today, if you don't understand a word, look it up on Google and then look it up somewhere else. If you're not constantly educating yourself and striving to be better than who you are today, then you kind of wither. You kind of just, things happen. You know, I'm a firm believer that there are those that let things happen and there are those that make things happen.
Let me ask you then, what's your favorite book? Like all-time favorite, like you've read it a ridiculous amount of times. What's your all-time favorite?
You know, I'd have to say I do two things. I look at Good to Great,
that's a great one.
which has always been a good book because you're kind of defining the roles that you have to put people through. But I'll tell you a funny story. My son and I were watching The Notebook, the movie.
Yeah.
And at the end of The Notebook,
I'm seeing a lot of tears. I'm just seeing a lot of
we both looked, and my son at the time was, there was a lot of tears, and I looked at him and he looked at me, and he goes, allergies, Dad? And I said, yeah. And then I looked at him, I said, you know, it's a good thing to have a good cry every once in a while, isn't it? And then we immediately went to a Steven Seagal movie. The point I'm making is this. I think at times, you know, you asked a great question. The books we read, if you read a number of different books, and I'm looking at Chip Wars right now, Good to Great, do a lot of reading. There's another book that I love, and Lifespan, Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to.
I love that.
I think you have to keep the mindset. Why we age and why we don't have to. We have to constantly, particularly if you're an advisor, but if you're a leader and a manager, or just a human being in general, if you want to prolong this whole concept of memory loss, if you want to prolong the whole idea of living life, read, question, ask why. You have to take it. No one's going to do it for you. In fact, I'll tell you, having
Yeah.
grown up in Oakland, what was the fallback position? Well, the fallback position at that point in time was mom. But as mom got older and you could see her changes in her life, the fallback position is you,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's you. And that's the hardest part for folks to realize is there's no backup
It's just
plan
you.
unless you came from an extremely wealthy family.
Yeah.
It's you.
Actually,
You're the
I
backup
heard
plan.
Oprah say this once, and absolutely loved it. Where someone said, you as part of the interview, it's like, oh my gosh, you're so remarkable. You know so much. And she's like, I actually feel like I don't. I am just an active reader. I am a great repository for
Yes.
information. So I have so much in my file cabinet, mental file cabinet, so to speak, right? That if someone makes a reference, I can go, oh, here you go. Check out this book. Here's a quote, etc., etc. So I love the idea of reading, and I love if you guys haven't read it yet, Good to Great. I've just blanked on the name of the author, but good. If you, it's a book that's well known. You'll type it into Google, it will pop up. One of the things I heard you say earlier was that you absolutely need a team. Does that team necessarily need to be in-house? Are we also, what about the idea of mentors and great referral partners and accountability partners? What's your opinion on that for business owners?
So let's go back to why did the business owner executive, what is the job that they're,
Yeah,
what's the job to be done? What is the business that they're in? Number two, it takes a team to build these businesses. So the real question becomes, in my mind, is can that team, do they have the same moral values that you have? Number one. Number two, can you help guide that team and mentor them to be better than they are today? And number three, can you learn from them as well? I mean, that's important because you don't know everything. And all this tribal knowledge that these folks bring to the table. There's another book called Range, Range, and it's a culmination of who we are today. It's based on all of our experiences through life. At times we don't acknowledge that. At times we don't say, you know what, I am the way I am because of this, or I know a little bit about that because I was in that industry. By the way, that's another wonderful thing about being a business and management advisor. You get to see so many industries and you get to see so many personalities. And if you're not curious about
right.
that, you're not going to be a good advisor. I mean, if you ask me how much it costs to make a baguette versus what does e-beam technology do, to what was the origins of rebar. I mean, all these things are a culmination of your experiences. And that's another book that's interesting. It's called Range,
Right.
Range. And embrace it. Embrace what we've learned. Good, the bad, and ugly. You need to embrace it because it's going to be that nugget of information that you can share with other people. And you want to be able to share,
Let me
authentically
ask you,
share.
as we're rolling to the end here, if you were to give someone, I don't know, 3 to 5 steps, because you said something earlier that I really love, which is really, we all know how to do this. We just really don't do it.
Yeah.
We all know how to lose weight. We
We
all
want to,
know
yeah.
all of these, but we choose not to do it. So, what are your like no nonsense, like I'm starting the business or I've already started and I need to get things together? What are some practices that should be established as you're going from a good to great company?
Well, the first thing is, do you really have a passion for what you're
Mm,
doing? And if you don't have a passion, find some aspect of what you're doing where that passion resonates. You really feel it because being an entrepreneur, owning a business, being an advisor, life is full of challenges. And when you get down to the bottom of the barrel, you have to really sit there and have that passion for what you're doing and believe in what you're doing is right. Otherwise, you will not get
mm,
through that next obstacle. And there are multiple obstacles that you're going to hit. I think number two, you have to embrace the
mm,
fact that you don't know it all. And it's okay to talk to an advisor and a counselor. Hey, listen, it's okay to talk to a therapist. But we as human beings need to be able to collaborate, share, vent. That's absolutely important. So make sure that you have a group of advisors. And number three, the hiring piece. I think you have to hire people not because you like them, as much as not because you would break bread with them.
If you can hear me, Tony, I think you froze. So we're just, this is part of the beauty, by the way, of going live, that sometimes your Wi-Fi kicks out on you and the screen may freeze for like a little bit. Of course, he was in this wonderful thought to this moment. So hopefully he can hear us and adjust. Um, so the books that he recommended, Lifespan, Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to. Okay, so he'll be coming back in. Sometimes folks forget that it's not just what you know, but your body temple is so important as well. Your longevity, your ability to retain information, your brain is also a muscle that should be exercised as well. So I'm going to get that book on my list. Range, that's another one that Tony recommended. The other one, it's a classic. It's been around for a while. I absolutely love it. It's called Good to Great Companies. So hopefully Tony exited out completely and he's coming back in. So here he comes. So I'm excited. Hey Tony.
Hey,
I just kept speaking and sharing about those great books. Because I figure this is the beauty, folks, of going live and being authentic. We're not like a pre-recorded, perfectly edited show. This is actually how business works every day, and you have to be able to pivot, right? So, but you were in the middle of a thought about our steps towards running a business and the things that we should know.
number one
Um,
about the passion component. That's obvious that you need to have passion because that passion gets you to the tough times, and also gets you through the great times. So that's number one. Number two, you have to have a great team built around you, and the team doesn't necessarily have to have. You don't have to break bread with them. You don't have to be part of their family, but they do have to have the same moral compass and values that you have, because trust is a big part of running a business. And number three, you've got to be able to share your time and learn from them, and they can learn from you as well,
yeah.
because it's a journey. It's not a transaction. And I know that's an overplay, but it's true. Think about it. Journeys are full of surprises or nuggets of opportunities that you didn't realize, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
if you're willing to take the journey, great. What prevents people from taking that leap is fear of
Oh,
failure.
oh,
Remember,
that's like a whole nother show
it's
is like
another show on
fear.
failure, but I
Yeah, that whole fear, because I think that's what stops a lot of folks from doing even the most basic things. It's like this thought in our minds of what's probably going to happen instead of allowing what actually is happening in front of you to happen,
just let it happen. Just let it
Exactly.
happen, and enjoy the ride.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the ride. There's. It's funny that I don't listen to a lot of rap music and so forth. I may be classifying this wrong, but Pitbull has a saying: "Anytime above the ground is a good time."
Every time I get, because it's not promised, right? I mean, it's,
No,
uh, listen, a couple of years back, I had a vendor that, with my last business, used to talk to her every day. They did our collections for the company and reached out just to say hello, just to do a check-in on a Monday. And they were like, I'm so sorry to let you know she passed away.
mm,
Passed away? How? Because she's so active. She's out playing baseball with her friends, gets hit, goes home, goes to sleep,
doesn't wake up.
doesn't wake up. You know what I mean? Healthy woman, single mom with a child. It's like tomorrow's not promised. And I think sadly people save it. And whenever I see them saving it, I just kind of back away from people. I'm like, what are you saving? Like you have a control over the universe. But let me ask you one question to wrap up the show.
Sure.
What one skill, if you could say to a business owner, I need you to have this worked into your personalities that's going to help you, what would your word be?
I'm going to say that it's called emotional intelligence.
I like it.
You have to
One,
be able to rise above the noise and look at a situation from the other person's point of view. I just completed a book by Elon Musk Isaacson's biography on Elon Musk. I read the one on Stephen Jobs. There's a great book out of Stanford Business School called The No Asshole Rule. I'm going to share with you this. We oftentimes bucket other people because of what they said, what we've heard of them, what their persona or brand is, but do we really take the time to understand them?
Mm,
Elevate your own emotional intelligence, because until we get to AI completely and robotics completely, we're still in a society of being able to communicate with each other, and we've got to understand each other, and we can't be divisive. We really need to understand where they're coming from and see it from their point of view. You don't have to agree with them. Boy, it's another human being. Why not listen to them? Oprah, other folks have said this, Lester Holt, a number of people have said this: be kind to one another.
mm,
And you know what? You may need to get something done. You
yeah,
communicate with that person differently than that, but one thing you need to be able to do is say, you know what? There's a reason the way they are. Who would have known that Anthony Bourdain and Robin Williams uh, were going to go through what they went through? We don't know.
yeah,
So take the time to have high emotional intelligence. If you don't think you understand it, read a book about it. There's lots of books about it. Talk to a therapist, talk to an organizational behaviorist. Emotional intelligence will get you through a lot of challenging times and help you build a great organization and help you succeed in life.
yeah.
Success, by the way, can be defined by a lot of folks. It's not about the money.
Mm.
That's a
It's,
metric.
I love that Stephen Covey says, seek to understand, right? You know,
Exactly.
you want someone to understand you, but you haven't taken the time to
Understand
understand
them.
others first. I
Yes.
love that. That's a great stopping point for us because I'm about to say, hey, Tony, I'm coming over. Let's go get coffee
Let's do
and
it.
some lunch and maybe a beer and sit and talk some more, you know?
My low beer light is on somewhere in the world right now.
Hey, it's 12 noon somewhere. Don't judge us, people. You
That's right.
know.
Don't judge us. All right, let's
So
grab a
listen,
bottle of wine and catch up.
thank you. Please reach out to our guest today, everyone. Constantino, it was amazing. I'm selecting that name as well and owning it for you as well. Please reach out, connect to him on LinkedIn. If your company is at that stage, reach out to him on his website as well. Easy Fine. That's where we all live now. My continued mission is to continue to introduce you to everyday business experts to help up level you. We're a hive mind after all. We all have a piece of the puzzle. As Tony said, it's important to speak to each other and hear each other. I will also inspire with marketing tips on our marketing days. Thank you so much for continuing to share this, like it, support. I appreciate you. We are every Thursday at 10 a.m. live. Um, do you happen to have a quote, Tony, that you say a lot that you wouldn't mind sharing today?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the quote I use a lot is there's actually two. Number one, never let a good crisis go to waste. So figure a way around it. There's always going to be a crisis, just figure a way around it. And number two, there are those that let things happen, and there are those that make things happen. So
Oh,
go out there and make something happen today, whether that's a new friend, a new collaboration, a new contact, or learn a new skill, but go out there and make it happen. Because you let it happen and the whole world goes right by you. Go make something happen today.
you guys heard it here. So whether you're starting a business, just starting, or you're further in, all of this applies. You can stop and go another direction, like right now. And so hopefully this has been helpful to you. We have other folks coming up. Please reference the other items on LinkedIn as well, and to our YouTube channel if you want to find more information. Thank you guys so much. You continue to amaze me. Stay strong. Keep moving forward as always. Tony, awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
again. Bye, everyone, and have an amazing rest of the day. And we're out.